please find your seats, we're ready to begin today's celebration of life.
Okay, here we go.
Welcome to the First Existentialist Congregation of Atlanta. If you look at your program, you'll see my name is Wade Marble. I'm your facilitator today. And our musician today is Charlie Goat. And our opening song is page 75, found in the Pink Book. It's a weed is a relative thing on page 75. Please rise in body or spirit as you are able or willing. Welcome to the First Existentialist Congregation of Atlanta. We are a spiritual community philosophically based on existentialist and feminist principles, dedicated to human liberation and protection of the natural world. We make our spiritual home in the old stone church, which was hand-built by the African-American Antioch East Baptist Church. We acknowledge that racial hostility drove those African Americans from the area, and we honor them and the powerful history of this place. We also acknowledge that in the 1800s, the Miccosukee Creek people were driven from this land, and we support justice for all Indigenous people. All things are connected. Whatever befalls the earth befalls the children of earth. Chief Seattle, leader of the Suquamish and Duwamish. And the words of Leon Shenandoah of the Iroquois Nation, Confederacy, the Iroquois Confederacy. I'm working for creation. I do not want to take part in its destruction.
Yeah.
If anyone has community announcements, would you please write them down? We do have paper. It's not on the table there. Jan, could you grab it is there, okay. I didn't see it earlier. All right, so just please write your community announcements down and bring them up to me for reading a little later in the service. Are there any newcomers with us here today? And if so, would you like to stand and introduce yourselves, if you choose to do so? Okay. Does anyone have a birthday or an anniversary to celebrate?
Just to say this, not that we need to sing, but Friday will be Mountain X's birthday.
All right. Any others?
I'd just like to acknowledge my Father's Day of passing is tomorrow, Irving Kelman, and my cousin Eddie Kelman's day of passing as well.
Okay. Our next song is Simple Gifts, found in the Pink Book. All of our songs are in the Pink Book this morning, on page 55.
Bye.
Thank you, Charlie. As our fellowship minister, Marsha Mitchiner, is also our speaker today, we're going to go on past the fellowship minister moment, and she'll share any remarks she has for that in her speech. We do have a couple of community announcements. The book and bake sale will be June 3rd. June 3rd. Please start collecting LPs, books, CDs, DVDs, puzzles, and recipes for delicious baked goods. June 3rd.
What time?
9 to 2.
What time?
9 to 2.
Okay. 9 to 2. And that's right here in the sanctuary. Marsha?
In addition to that is I will be sending out an email requesting volunteers, like we do every year, to participate. So be on the lookout for your email.
Okay. Okay, the Edgewood historical marker was recently placed at the 2019 site of the Antioch East Baptist Church on Hardy Street. It was initiated by the organized neighbors of Edgewood. Ask Edie for more information. Today, after the celebration of life, you can meet at 1 to 1:30 p.m. at Longwater Park. Trails Wildlife Picnic Lunch. Mary, did I say that right? Picnic lunch
yes.
is in
It was
Trails
announced
Wildlife.
in the May newsletter. But see me if you are interested in such a sojourn after the CLL.
Okay, are there any other community announcements? At this time, we will have a time of silence. There are candles on each side of the sanctuary, if you would like to light one for any reason. Our next song is God Bless the Grass, found in the Pink Book on page 73. Page 73.
It breaks
Christian Hampton. And today we'd like to welcome Marty Keller and Richard Cohen. Would you like to say anything?
Sure. Me not say something? So I have been a lifelong...
Marty. There you go.
I've been a lifelong Jewish, humanist, Buddhist sort of, transcendentalist, existential, feminist, Unitarian Universalist. For the past 25 years I've been serving Unitarian Universalist congregations and the Women's Federation, so I have not been a member. So I thought long and hard about where I would like to be a member, and it was an easy decision. I have served and visited most of the congregations in the southern region, at least the Mid-South, and I want to tell you how proud I've always been of you, and now it's us.
All right.
Because you live your values, we live our values. We're kind and compassionate. We're rooted in the neighborhood. We support the arts and music. I could go on and on. But I want to tell you how special you are and how pleased I am to be part of you.
Hard act to follow. I was probably a Unitarian.
It's a direct one. Yeah.
Okay. I was probably a Unitarian when I was a teenager, but didn't know it. I was raised in a informed Jewish environment, but I saw broader things, and that is what led me to UU. Over the last 25 years, I've visited many congregations as the minister's spouse throughout the southern region, throughout parts of the rest of the country, and abroad. And for me, this was home. This is the place I wanted to be. So that's why I'm here.
Welcome home, and please continue volunteering for committees. Thank you very much. You already did. 2 committees.
Thanks, Randy. Very good.
Welcome, Marty and Richard. We have a song, a welcome song that comes from West Africa. It has some English words. And so Dr. Dean and I are going to sing, and hopefully you will be able to join along because it's a rather simple song. I get to sing. Okay. Okay. With loving hearts and voices true, in peace and love, we welcome you. With loving hearts and voices true, in peace and love, we welcome you. Banga Latvia.
Thank you, Gene and Mary. The plates and have special music by Charlie, which I'm told is Reverie by Robert Schumann. Thank you, Charlie. Our speaker for today is Marsha Mitchiner. Marsha has been a fellowship minister of the congregation since 1993, we're guessing. And she is a friend of us all. Marsha, please welcome Marsha Mitchiner.
Everyone here today, and I really appreciate the fact that you made the choice to come and be with us and be a part of our community today. Before I begin my prepared words, I just need to say how much my heart is just once again filled with sadness and grief because we've had another mass shooting in the country. Yesterday it was Texas. Last week it was Atlanta. And we have Grady to thank for the fact that I understand that they did a miraculous job of saving those that were so badly injured in that attack, even though one person lost her life. And I don't know the answer, but there has to be something done. And I think one of the ways that we begin that is by making sure that our representatives know how we feel about the issue of gun violence and encourage and in fact demand that they do something instead of nothing, which they have been doing for way too long. I appreciate the fact that Charlie this morning chose songs that were all related to the topic of my service this morning, Keepers of the Earth. It was very good. Thank you very much. But what I want to talk about this morning is the Miccosukee Creek people that inhabited much of Georgia, and in fact, a lot of the metropolitan Atlanta area. And a large contingency settled in a village near where I live, where the Chattahoochee River and a large creek converged. In fact, two large creeks converged along with the Chattahoochee. And the name of that village was Standing Peachtree. 2 words. Peach tree, 2 words. And many, particularly local historians, believe that that was the origin of our enormous number of peach trees that we have throughout the city. The Creeks were a peaceful people. They were agrarian. They lived off the land. They primarily farmed, and they would hunt for, and what I read was largemouth bass, and they hunted birds and deer. And the crops that they grew were crops like tomatoes, my favorite, tomatoes and pumpkins, and their primary source was corn. They even have a dance that they dance at when a new harvest is brought in, and it's called the Sacred Green Corn Dance. They settled in these villages in single-family houses. They were actually houses. They were not teepees. They were houses. They were made of primarily of wood and plaster. And then they had thatched roofs. And the houses surrounded a major center of the town for other activities. I like the fact that they were a matrilineal society, which means that women were considered to be head of the family. And many of the individual settlements, villages, the chief might have been a woman. And in fact, there's a story that a 95-year-old man was interviewed in 1931. So he was 95 in 1931. And he remembered the Standing Peachtree village, and that their chief was Nance, a woman. It's also believed then that this is how we get Nancy Creek.
Those 2 creeks are Nancy Creek and Peachtree Creek? You said the 2 creeks that met, is that Nancy Creek and Peachtree Creek?
Yeah.
Okay.
The natural resources were used in every aspect of the lives of the Creeks. So it's easy to understand why that they viewed, and still Native American, Native people do believe, that the earth is the mother of all things. They recognize that all creatures and plants depend upon the earth for their very existence, and believe we are all bound together as kin, brothers and sisters, plants and creatures. The land and the natural resources provided and supported the essential elements of life and culture, from their very subsistence, their hunting, their fishing, their gathering, to the sources of economic development and tribal sacred spaces. I know that you're familiar with the variety of places around the country where Native people have very sacred sites centered around the earth. I have a quote, and for some reason I didn't write down the author of the quote, but I can tell you it was an author who was obviously writing about Native American culture, and said Native American religions and spirituality are rooted in the land. Sacred sites often provide the physical foundation for a tribe's creation stories. These stories form the thread that connects each new generation to their ancestors and knits them into the fabric of tribal culture and identity. So the land and environment are intrinsically intertwined with human development and well-being. That is a core belief of the Native people. Native people understand that decisions we make today have lasting effects on future generations. Can I repeat that? Decisions we make today have lasting effects on future generations. It was true then, and it's true now. On Paces Ferry Road in Vinings, there's a business that sits back a little bit from the road. And there's a bronze statue in just outside here, foyer area. The statue is of a woman, and she's has a child that is clinging to her leg, and she's holding her apron. I kind of gathered it because there's some things that she's holding in that gathered space, and she's holding out her right arm, and in that right arm there's a peach. And the plaque that talks about this statue says that the statue is of a woman, a Native American Creek, actually she was Cherokee woman, named, Nancy Still. She was a member of the Creek Nation, but she lived near the Creek native village of Standing Peachtree. So when the relocation of Native Americans began, based on the Relocation Act, she wrote to the then governor of Georgia, who was Lumpkin, and she said, please, she begged him to not force her and her 6 children to leave. They actually have, they quoted, so I assume that in the archives, in the governor's archives, that they have a letter and her letter read in part, "My little children has made all improvements with their hands, and know to lose it this time of year and go in the woods. They can't make nothing to live on. If we are turned out, my children will perish." Governor Lumpkin actually did intervene and told the surveyors to exclude her from the survey, and that would save her property. However, it didn't happen, and the federal government forced her and her 6 children on the Trail of Tears. We know that they started the Trail of Tears. There's no record they ever reached Oklahoma. In 1936, the U.S. federal government drove 15,000 creeks off their land, 20 million acres of land. More than 3,500 of them died along the Trail of Tears. And that's just the creek. Of course, there were thousands more, Cherokee and others. There were on the Trail of Tears that did not make it. 98.9% of Native people who had relied on and worshipped their land were removed from their ancestral land and forced to live on smaller plots of marginal land more vulnerable to climate change. 98.9% across the country. Losing their connection to their environmental landscape, both physically and spiritually, created a tragic toll spanning generations. They were forced to become farmers on poor land. Starvation was common, and living in more cramped, crowded spaces gave the spread of diseases brought by white settlers an opportunity to run rampant. Infant mortality was and still is higher. They were forced to wear non-native clothing and to learn to speak and write English. I don't know if you've read any of the stories, but it is pretty horrific if you read stories about how Native Americans, children and young adults, were taken and placed in residential facilities where they were taught how to read and write English. They were made to wear European style, clothes. It was not a friendly environment. The idea was that by getting them to assimilate into white culture, it would basically wipe out the Native American population. Problem solved. All of these things have led to the erosion of their heritage as as keepers of the earth. Excuse me. But you don't have to be Native American to understand our relationship to the land, the environment, and the importance of seeing ourselves as keepers of the earth. We are still dependent on earth today for our survival. So how connected do you feel to the earth? How aware are you of plants' life cycles? Excuse me. The migration of birds, the process of pollination, and the related importance of insects like bees. When you sit outside or go for a walk, do you pay attention? Do you pay attention to what's around you? Do you notice the trees and the bushes and the weeds? Do you notice the, thank you so much, I appreciate that. Do you notice the little animals scurrying around? Thank you. I apologize, I was having a little asthma stuff this morning. Do you use all of your senses when you're walking or sitting and just looking? To be aware of what's around, what our environment is, and what it means. What does it smell like? What does it sound like? What does it look like? What does it feel like? We can acknowledge our intrinsic relationship to the earth. How we are intrinsically connected and dependent upon the earth and the environment. If you read some of the doomsday type material, it's doesn't look too good for living creatures and plants, because we are systematically destroying much of the land and the environment. It's important that we, number one, be aware of what is in our environment. Number two, what is happening to our environment. And number three, what can we do to make a difference? And I think that if we could embrace that belief that Native people have, that the earth is the mother of all things. If we can embrace how we are all kin with the plants and the creatures that are out there, if we really believe that, then we will find ourselves in our everyday life just naturally doing things that will be respectful of the earth and the environment and the creatures and the plants. There are obviously a lot of ways that we can do things like recycling, being aware of products that we buy to try to reduce the number of plastics that we purchase, and the packaging, look for packaging. Let companies know. It irritates me to no end to open a box of something and the box is this tall and what's in it is like this. But we can do something. Every one of us can in some way do something. But it's up to us to decide what that is. And it's up to us to individually to take the initiative, to do the things that we can do. Doesn't have to be anything drastic. You can every day and everything that you do during your life. You can think about the earth as the mother of all things. And you will find ways that you can respect and honor and help to keep her and us around for a long time to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marsha. Our closing song is You Just Can't Make It By Yourself, found in the Pink Book on page 88. Page 88.
For the mother,
closing words are from Kent Nurburn and Louise Mengelkart, who edited Native American Wisdom and wrote this in the introduction. Western civilization is confronting the inevitable results of this European-American philosophy of dominance. We have gotten out of balance with our Earth, and the very future of our planet depends on our capacity to restore that balance. This ends our celebration of life for today. Go out and enjoy the beautiful day and do your best to restore that balance. Carpe diem.
Carpe diem.